Welcome to the vendor collaboration session. All set, finished with lunch and everything? Okay, so you're welcome to move a little bit closer. I think maybe it's easier to see some of the things on the screen later on. I'm going to show a lot of UI from our Dynamics 365 application. Okay, so how many have knowledge about the 365 Finance for Operations? Have it installed already? Yeah, well, okay, so fine. It's an online service, ERP system. It developed out of an on-premise system. So what I want to show you here is that there's a lot of capabilities in the system here. It's the admin look. We have organized it around some workspaces here. So, but for our vendor collaboration, since it's a web-based app, so we decided what we wanted to present a subset, or we actually want to use the same interface for our vendors, the external persons coming in to work together with the organization. So, so really, it's just it's a subset of what you're seeing here. So, and I want to go in details of what that can do. You can also have some different navigation path here. So what did we put in for the vendor collaboration capabilities into the system? We have an ability to onboard new vendors I will go through and show you. And we also have vendors that has access to the system can come in and maintain their profile, add new contact person, collaborate around purchase orders, and create invoices and send invoices to the organization, bidding, do RFQ, request for quotations, and at the end, if I have time, I want to show you a really cool feature, but that's kind of more a collaboration the other way, where employees in the company are bouncing out to vendors' online catalog. But let's see how far we get. So vendor onboarding, just to set the scene here, the Dynamics 365 doesn't have a anonymous access, so if you want to onboard vendors, you'll have to have a website outside. You can create it from Microsoft Forms and use the flow to pick out the request to sign up as a vendor. And once you have done that, you can use our OData interface and import a prospective vendor registration request into the system. It's very simple. Information that's there, like the vendor's name and an email that you want to use for kind of connecting to the system later on. We have a workflow. We're sending it through, so different persons in the company can approve this person coming in, sending it to communicate. We're using an API to Azure B2B, where the email of the vendors send up. So the Azure actually making sure that that account has access to the Dynamics 365. And you can use like Yahoo, Hotmail, some consumer account as well. Okay, so things happening there between the Azure portal and the vendor with email, making sure that the passwords is all right. It's not a 365 handling that. And the vendor will log into the system. Once he logs in, he will see a wizard. And this is the place where he's putting in his information. And I will show you that in a moment. That vendor request comes into the system again, and it's processed inside. It eventually will end up in a vendor record. In that way, you can actually, that the person put in a lot of information like address and so on, that you can use for a vendor record afterwards. So let's see how he will sign in, and just going through very fast the wizard here. You'll have the country that he's doing business in, a message or a configurable message of like he needs to agree on terms and conditions and so on, and ability to put in the address, the person's address, and some business information. All these things are configurable, so you can make it mandatory or optional and show them, hide them, and so on. The next thing will be that they put in some categories he wants to sell within, and you can also put in a questionnaire, which is kind of much more flexible, where you can get the vendor to respond to questions. All this information is then gathered in in a request that comes in that's processed further on in the system. Enough about that. So when the vendor logs in, that's what he will see. He'll have 4 workspaces. There will be one workspace for handling invoices, purchase orders, bidding, and the information here. So if he's going into his profile, you can see he'll have his address and so on, the contact persons. He can actually, if he has a special role, he will be able to add contact persons himself and actually ask whether these contact persons also can be users. So there's workflow processes around that. General addresses and so on, he can go in and look at his information and edit that as well. Oh, yeah. So just to go fast forward here, purchase orders. He will be able to see this purchase order sent him, so you avoid kind of sending them by email. So I think we should think of the vendors that's here. It's not EDI vendors. It's not kind of massive where you're sending big amount of purchase orders to it. It's smaller vendors that can benefit from this. You see, there's a limited number of purchase orders and could be there. Of course, you can scroll, but it's kind of it's handled manual. It's like a vendor portal. So here are the purchase orders here, and they can accept, reject, or suggest changes. So the suggesting changes will allow the vendor to say, this I want, I can deliver it on a different day than you asked me, or I can split the lines in different deliveries, or I can make alternative lines, suggest alternative products to deliver instead. So, and then he sent it back, and of course we have internal processes in Dynamics 365 and then can process those answers, and so taking that collaboration back and forth. So there's a very clear tracking and versioning story around this, so you can always see what was sent to the vendor and what was responded and so on. Okay, so the invoicing part, based on the purchase orders that's there, the vendor can create invoices and then put them in as draft, follow up whether they are paid and so on. So the status, it's easy to track that. I didn't say before, but in these documents that they are exchanging, you can attach documents as well, like Word documents. So like with the purchase orders, you can send drawings and so on, so the vendor can see those documents. The vendor bidding part, that would be the workspace here. So you have new bid invitations, return bids, bids in progress, and awarded and lost bids. So here you clearly see that this is the bid that came in that he needs to respond on. Again, it can be accomplished by, or there can be attachments related to this, so they can easily see what attachments that's there. So if they choose one of the RFQs here, they're going into a description of what their request for quotation is, and they have lines and so on, and again, attachments. So I think it's probably a little bit too detailed to go into all the fields here. I hope you get the idea of what we're talking about here. Okay. So that was basically very quickly what the vendor could do. Do you have any questions and so on around that? Okay. So let's talk about the punch-out capabilities. So it's different from all the vendor collaboration, which I went through very fast here. The punch-out capabilities is kind of the other way around, where the employees in the company, they are ordering products which they don't have in their own system. They don't have it in the product master, because it's maybe it's not very often they buy it, and it's too tedious to kind of keep track on the prices and product descriptions and so on. So the punch-out capability allows you to kind of punch out to a vendor's catalog where you can get real-time prices and product descriptions, which you are kind of bringing back to your system, your ERP system, in a requisition, and then that flows further on in the procurement flow. So the requisition is basically to get the expense approved. So let's take a look at that process. So as I said, we're starting from a requisition here, and at the bottom, I try to illustrate what's actually happening in the, behind the scene as a communication between the organization and the vendor. So when we are punching out, we're sending with the CXML protocol a request for the vendor. Of course, you need to have an agreement with this vendor. You need to have credentials and so on. So it has to be set up on both sides. But you're punching out to this catalog, and you're doing your shopping there, picking the items, and checking out from the catalog. So when you're returning, you're actually having a post-back CXML message here with having all the information about the items. So we have some possibilities of setting up the protocol with the extra values and so on, if depending on what your vendor is required, the requirements there. So at the end, the products and prices is added to the requisition. So here, the UI will be that you, as an employee creating a requisition, you have an external catalog button here, which shows you the catalog here. And you can set up multiple catalogs, of course. And depending on the policies we have for the requisition of who's buying what, there is different limitations of what the employee can buy with. You say this category or this category are allowed or not allowed. And then they can see, then you filter out basically the catalogs that they have access to. So here in the demo, I have one catalog, and when I say I want to punch out from that, I'll be informed that I'm punching out to another site. Here it's a CDW catalog, where we have an agreement of punching out to them. You're going in and do all your shopping, picking the items you want, and you have your basket here. Then you are transferring your basket back to the requisition. And once you get to the requisition, this is now you're back in Dynamics 365. You have all the products here, but now you need to map them to your own category inside your own system, because it's not necessarily the same categories as the product catalog had. So you're mapping it to categories here, and then you are transferring those lines to the requisition as such. In the data down here, you can see you have the item description. You can't see that. We have to trust me. It's very detailed here. You have a special type, like this external catalog item, and that information you can use in your workflow later on if you want some special criterias, branching conditions on that field, if the workflow should go through different paths, if it's such kind of punch out. And you have of course, the exact price from the catalog. Okay. Good. That was actually what I had. I think I went a little bit too fast through it. I hope you got the idea with the whole vendor collaboration here. And so if you have some questions, you're welcome to come up and see more demos. Yeah.